The station, once a beacon of hope, now lay in ruins, a ghost of its former glory. His boots echoed in the silence, crunching against debris. He paused, eyes falling on the twisted remains of shrapnel scattered across the floor. Another casualty of this endless war. 1 hour earlier, Superman had stood in the White House, confronting President Lex Luthor. The room felt suffocating, not from the heat of battle, but from the weight of impossible choices. Luthor's voice was firm, unyielding. "You've been drafted, Superman. You'll go to the moon. You'll end this war." Amanda Waller and General Rock flanked him, their arguments clinical, calculated. The numbers were grim. Millions dead, Earth hanging by a thread. Superman's jaw tightened, his fists trembling. He was no soldier, but this was no ordinary war. Back in the Watchtower, Superman activated the artificial gravity. Across the room, Chemo, a living, leaking chemical disaster, thudded to the ground, his corrosive fluids spreading across the floor. Superman moved past him, deeper into the Watchtower, when a low groan froze him in his tracks. Mongol, bloodied and broken, lay slumped against a wall. Before Superman could react, a voice slithered out of the shadows. Well, 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 the Man of Steel finally in the thick of it. It was Manchester Black, a smirk curling across his face. His eyes gleamed with mischief and malice. "They sent us up here to wake the big dog. Worst temper I've ever seen, and you've got front row seats to the show." Superman pushed past him, urgency pounding in his chest. He found Steel slumped against the console, barely conscious. His armor cracked. Steel's voice was faint, a whisper of defiance. "I had to, Clark. I had to free it. Only way to win." Manchester's smirk faded as he added, "The big dog's been fed an image of Imperiex. Now he's loose. You're welcome." Superman's heart sank. Doomsday. He barely registered Manchester leaving, the teleporter collapsing in a burst of sparks. Outside the station, Superman found chaos incarnate. Doomsday was already in the fray, tearing through Imperiex probes with savage efficiency. Superman's stomach churned as he watched his greatest foe, the creature that had killed him, become a reluctant ally. Together, they fought, the unlikeliest of partners, smashing probe after probe in a desperate bid to stem the tide. And then, the sky darkened. Imperiex Prime descended like a god of annihilation, radiating cosmic power. With a single gesture, he obliterated Doomsday, stripping the monster to a glowing skeleton before casting it into the void. Superman could only watch in horror as his ally, however monstrous, was reduced to nothing. Rage and desperation coursed through him as Imperiex turned his gaze to Earth's last sun. Before Superman could act, he was struck by a blast of unimaginable energy, hurtling him across the cosmos like a burning comet. He crash-landed on Apokolips, his body broken, his spirit teetering on the edge. There, on the molten world, Darkseid awaited. "Welcome to my domain, Kryptonian." The tyrant growled, his voice cold and unyielding. "You seek to stop Imperiex. You cannot. But perhaps you can wield the weapon I have forged." Darkseid revealed an infernal creation, a probe shell enhanced with apocalypsean technology, its very existence an affront to nature. Superman hesitated, the weight of his choices bearing down on him, but a faint signal pierced his resolve. Steel. His friend's voice, weak but insistent, crackled through the void. Superman raced back to the Watchtower, his heart pounding. But when he arrived, it was too late. Steel was gone, his message scrawled in his own blood. War. Superman collapsed to his knees, grief and fury intertwining. But even in death, Steel's will burned bright. Superman stood, his cape torn, his eyes aflame with resolve. He faced the Black Racer, the harbinger of death, pleading for his friend's soul. But the Racer's voice was cold, unfeeling. "This is the way of things, Kryptonian. But know this, death is relative." As the Racer disappeared, a flicker of humanity stirred within him, a faint memory of a life once lived. And Superman, ever resolute, decided to exploit the one undeniable truth: death is relative.